As you would expect, post 9/11, there are plenty of cameras all over train stations these days, especially in the Hoboken area. By the way, I'm on a train myself right now. That's what you hear behind me. So they've recovered the train station surveillance camera video. The train itself had an outward-facing camera out of the cab, no inward-facing camera, and so they're going to be looking at that video surveillance coming from the outward-facing camera from the train. Not clear whether they have that yet or not. But it's also really worth repeating here that they are going to be looking at a whole host of things. It's far too early to say that they've come to any kind of conclusion whatsoever. So yes, they'll look at the track, they'll look at the signals, they'll look at the human performance, as you heard from the NTSB. Was there a medical issue? Was there a distraction? Was the engineer on some sort of a phone device, which would be illegal, of course? And then they're going to be looking at speed, at braking, at lack of braking, all of that. And just to repeat, if you hadn't been tuned in earlier, in this particular train, the locomotive is in the rear, the engineer is in the front. So they will be doing surveillance and investigation from top to bottom.
Tom, you're cutting out just a little bit, so if we lose you, I'll just move on here. But really quickly, what are your sources telling you about this train engineer, about the man or woman who was driving this train?
All we know is that this engineer survived. I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but clearly the NTSB, as well as other authorities, Federal Railroad authorities, etc., will be very closely talking to him, and they will ask him a whole series of questions, which are not unique to this crash, we should stress. This is in every crash. They'll ask, have you been drinking at all? Do you have a drinking problem? Do you have a drug problem? Do you have any marital problems? Any problems at home? How much sleep did you get last night? Are you on any cough medication? I mean, all of this is part of the narrative, and it's part of every investigation so that they can try to come up with a basic understanding of all the human factors involved.
Tom Costello.
And by the way, one more thing, Craig. They're going to be, sometimes those of us who are a bit older forget, the social media, right? They've got to check the cell phone. Sure. They've got to check any indication whether the engineer may have been using his cell phone or his device he may have had. Was it used? Now, that's illegal. It's prohibited. And we've seen terrible crashes where people were distracted on their cell phones. So they're going to be asking all of those questions as well, and you can imagine they will probably try to subpoena or ask for the official records from whoever is his cell phone provider.
Our man on transportation, Tom Costello, breaking some news there. Sources telling him that surveillance video from inside that Hoboken station has been recovered. Tom, thank you. Tom on a train, as perhaps you heard there in the background, on a train, headed to the scene. U.S. Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey also on a train, headed to New Jersey, headed back home. Senator, thank you for your time. Folks on the ground there, a number of officials there obviously, what are they telling you about the investigation moving forward?
Well, I've spoken to the Federal Railroad Administrator, Sarah Feinberg, who is on her way to the scene. And many of her Federal Railroad inspectors and investigators are already at the scene. And as you'd reported, the National Transportation Safety Board is flying out and will be there this afternoon. What she has told me is that they had 250 passengers on the Pascack Valley line. They have that one unfortunate confirmed fatality, which, as I understand it, was not a passenger on the train, but a rider waiting on the platform. That they have nearly 100 injuries, some of them critical. That there's a very significant structural damage done at the Hoboken terminal, including a support column. And that track 5, which is where this accident took place, is right over the path tunnel. And so a real concern for the integrity of the floor and ceiling over that path tunnel that has so many thousands of riders go back between New York and New Jersey. And so probably, looking at, in addition to the fatality and the injuries, a significant transit disruption for at least the next foreseeable days.
Senator, we've heard a number of folks, the NTSB official there at the end of last hour, Tom Costello a few moments ago, talking about PTC, positive train control, this technology that we know that this is the kind of technology that would prevent an accident like this from happening. Why is it not standard? Why isn't every train, certainly every train that goes, that travels around some of the busiest areas of this country, why aren't these tracks at least outfitted with this positive track control technology?
Well, as the ranking Democrat on the Senate Transit Committee, I've been a big advocate of positive train control and pushing it out earlier and getting it done quicker. My understanding that in this particular case, New Jersey Transit has made zero progress on installation of positive train control. The most recent status report New Jersey Transit gave to the Federal Railroad Administration, which covered the first half of this year, says that they have 0 locomotives equipped with positive train control, 0 track segments equipped, 0 radio towers installed. So that's a real problem. And, they have a deadline that they're going to have to meet under the law, but I would have thought that they would have been further along in the beginning of the installation of that whole process.
That is certainly going to be a question that comes up, I'm sure, over the next few days in and around your state. Senator Menendez, safe travels to you, sir. Keep us up to date, please.
Thank you.
Let's bring in MSNBC medical contributor now, Dr. John Torres. Dr. Torres is at the Jersey City Medical Center. Dr. Torres, first of all, the scene there, can you set it for us?
Patients coming in. Some of them are walking in. They're the walking wounded we talk about. And then you can see ambulances in the distance occasionally driving a patient in that's more serious. We had a press conference a little earlier with the CEO and the chief medical officer. And what they're telling us is the majority of these patients are walking wounded. They said about 40 of them. They triage them in the cafeteria, which is pretty standard for this type of situation. You want a large area, you can get a lot of providers in there to triage them. Some of those have already come out that we have talked to, and they're talking to us about their injuries and about what they actually happened on the train, what they saw on the train. Then they have some more serious ones. They say 8 are serious, and there's 3 that are even a little bit more serious. One of them they're calling critical. The other 2 they're saying are serious, and they don't know exactly where they're going to go with those. One of them is in the operating room. One of them they said is going to go into the intensive care unit, and the other one was still being treated. So right now it's still a dynamic situation. Luckily we've gotten through that golden hour with only, unfortunately there was that one fatality, but everybody else has been taken care of. The majority of patients here at the Jersey City Medical Center, which is the trauma center for this area, and they were brought here in a timely fashion, and they've been taken care of fairly well.
Dr. John Torres there for us in New Jersey. A look now above the scene there, and you can see dozens, if not hundreds of emergency medical personnel, emergency responders assembled there outside the station in Hoboken. A number of folks transported to area hospitals. Again, at this point, we can tell you at least one person has died, roughly 100 others still injured, some of them critically, many of them the so-called walking wounded as well. This transit train 1614 crashed just before 9. That news conference that we mentioned a few moments ago, that New Jersey Transit news conference that was set to happen any moment, we're told that the news conference is being pushed back now. That news conference is going to happen at 2 o'clock Eastern. It will happen in conjunction with the news conference by New Jersey's Governor Chris Christie, who is expected to give us an update here at the top of the hour. When we come back here, though, on MSNBC, Hallie Jackson is in Michigan. She is in one of those battleground states. The candidates are expected to speak, expected to talk about what we've all been talking about for the past few hours. We'll go to her in Michigan on the other side of this break. A live look there in Iowa, where Hillary Clinton is expected to take the podium shortly.